Guess what? We're going live. Uh, so for anybody who is watching and is like, what the hell, guys? You were supposed to be on like
We
a little
were.
while ago. We were having some technical difficulties, so I apologize. But I am honored to be here with the incredible Scott Leva. And we are going to talk about the inspiration behind his fabulous memoir, I Am Was Spider-Man. And we're going to just dive right into it. Cool? All right. So here is the big $1,000,000 question. So, what was the moment that made you say, you know what, I have got to write this memoir?
Um, I had way back worked with.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Yes, you had.
I had way back been slated for the Canon Film Spider-Man movie, and
Mm,
it was kind of an interesting concept altogether. How everything fell apart, and I thought, wow, that would make an interesting story. So I kept all the notes,
mhm,
and for years I kept thinking, I'm going to write about this, and I never did. And there's just been a lot of stuff coming on about Spider-Man and people that related to him, and I kind of thought back and said, well, I have a whole story to tell about this. And there's another guy who's mentioned in my book is Spidey One,
mm,
that when he would go online he kept saying, I'm going to write a book at some point. And I was thinking, that's not really interesting. The guy dresses up as Spider-Man and runs around. I mean, and then I thought about it and said, if I actually incorporate the whole concept about growing up and how
mm,
Spider-Man influenced me
mhm,
and running around in the suit, and how the movie almost didn't get made, and the commercials and the comic covers and everything that went with it might be interesting. And
mm,
I had a friend at the time that said, "Oh, absolutely. You do stories about you running around in a costume. I mean, where are you going to go from there? But
mm,
you talk about your movie history and your growing up. I mean, it's a whole different thing." And I went, "What the hey?" So that's kind of what influenced me, was wanting to tell a story, but it grew bigger than the initial concept of what I wanted to do.
mm, mm. Um, okay, so and what was the first spark for this story? I mean, honestly, I still remember when you and I were sitting around talking about it, and I thought, you know what? I actually just want to see how you structure this and integrate everything. And I loved how, for those who may be watching and you may not know, I was actually Scott's editor, which really just meant we bounced around ideas, and he kindly let me have my 2 cents. So, um, but like, when did you really feel that first real spark? Like, aha, yes, that is the actual arc of this memoir.
What happened was, I thought about it for a while, and then I stopped thinking and just started writing,
Mm,
and just started to let the history come out, because throughout the industry that I've been in, there's a bunch of stories to tell when you're on a movie sets, even when you're dealing with comic creators like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. There's always stories that come out.
mm,
But the first thing that hit me is literally at the book, where do you start? You start at the beginning, where I grew up, and
mm,
how this first came into being. The first comic book I ever read being Spider-Man 39, way
mm.
back in 1966.
Wow.
And it just kind of went off, and there it was. I started writing, and the stories just started coming out.
Hmm.
And I just basically kept telling my stories just on paper, going click, 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 click. Um, and just remembering a lot of things that it literally just clicked from the beginning, that it's I want, and all sorts of things that influenced me growing up, because we moved so much, and I was the new kid all the time. Toys, comics, TV shows, movies, everything that kind of influenced me,
Hmm.
that a lot of it circled back to Marvel comics and Spider-Man, and being the new kid, I was picked on a lot, and I really related to Peter Parker, which a
Mm,
lot of people do,
mhm,
which is what made him such a big hit at the time.
mhm,
Um, but I can say without a doubt that I had no problem with just the story kind of sort of just flooding out.
mm. Um, so, and you and I have actually talked about this before, because as you've already commented, you probably could have written this 100 different times, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But for some reason, this did feel like the right time. What what made this feel like this was the story that needed to be written now?
Um, just a lot of people telling me,
Mm,
you know, wow, you've got a lot of stories. You know, you do a podcast. You should do this. You should that. You should write a book. And I kept getting people saying, "Oh, we want to hear more stories. You want to hear more stories." So I came to
mm,
this point that said, "Okay, let's tell stories. Let's just tell the story." Once I had set up the Instagram account, that initially I had maybe 16 followers,
okay.
and
Okay.
now I got like under 6,000. And if I were a little more active on it, I would probably have more.
Mhm,
But I met a lot of people that knew me through my work with Marvel that
mhm,
always said, "Wow, you inspired me," and this and that. So that kind of made me think, "Wow, this would be a good time to write that book."
mm.
You know, and 5,000 followers, if I get just half of you to buy the damn book.
Fair, fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so in terms of like the questions well, first let me back up a little bit. One comment I constantly get from people who read the memoir, A, how well written it is. B, um, how again, how and you already commented on it, how closely your life actually aligns to Peter Parker and
Hmm.
constantly feeling like the outsider. But you know what is really, really interesting is people always comment to me about how, I mean, you were there and an integral part of some really key time periods for Marvel and for the development of Spider-Man. And you could have easily been a jackass. and
Yeah, yeah.
and instead, you were able to have both that emotional separation where you're, you know situations that were traumatic, and you could have been a jerk, you were not. And but yet you still brought the emotional relevance or emotional significance of those moments to to the memoir itself, right? And that's no small feat. I mean, there are tons of people who can't do that, you know. Um, so one thing that is kind of an interesting question to me, like what questions or what stories within the memoir did you feel like you absolutely had to tell? And did you have a hard time relaying them because of that emotional significance?
The
Sense?
Yeah, the story with Bowie, Maryland, and Mrs. Bloom has been
Mm,
something that really affected me very strongly. I was bullied by the teacher. She was abusive.
mm,
Being the new kid was very difficult, and having a teacher come up and step all over you, that was difficult. And it's something that I've been trying to, catharsis that you look at and go, "Oh, this would be really good therapy," because I've always
mm,
wanted to do a short film on that.
mhm,
Um, that was that was something that I always felt I needed to bring out, um, because that was something that had a big effect on me. Out of all the schools, and I'd been through a bunch of schools,
mm,
but out of all the schools I've been to, that was the one that had the most impact to where it was the most difficult time.
Mm,
Um, I mean, there were stories I left out. Part of it was because people I didn't want to talk about that might have been insulted.
mm.
Um, there are things I look at now and go, "Oh wow, I should have told that story." Um, but
Well,
in
you
gen-
still can.
what what?
You still can.
Um, an interesting story. I mentioned him in the book. There's a guy by the name of Dennis Matalone that goes under the name Dennis Danger Matalone.
Mm,
Dennis used to work on The Greatest American Hero. He doubled William Catt, and he did all the crazy smashes into billboards and walls. Um, some people don't like Dennis, but in my business, some people don't like everybody. Some people don't like me and whatever, and I don't really particularly care.
mhm,
Dennis had a really big heart, and
mm,
he'd go out of his way for people. And when I was working on the film, he would say, "Hey, can you give this guy a job? He really needs work." Or, "Can you
mhm,
help this guy out and get him his SAG card? It'd be really nice." And I would.
mhm,
We were shooting in San Diego on a movie called Mercenary. John Ritter, Olivier Gruner, um, and it was one of these, as usual, big action films.
mhm,
And it was kind of a mess. They were way over budget. The unit production manager that hires stunt coordinators had his buddy he brought in, and I was promised the film. And I was in Ireland shooting another film at the time, but I was expecting to do that movie.
mhm,
And when I went back, I was going to confront the director, and he goes, "Scott, I'm so glad to see you," and he says, "Oh my God, this movie's such a mess. The stunt person I hired is just, it went on and on and on." And I said, "Well, then fire him and bring me in." And he
mhm,
says, "I might do that." Then he did this huge action sequence, which just looked so cheesy,
mm,
and there was so many problems, and he fired him.
mhm,
So I had a lot of problems dealing with budgets and trying to get huge action sequences done for less money than it was feasible with, because the entire
mm,
stunt budget had already been blown.
mm, mm,
Um, while we were shooting in San Diego, this homeless guy couldn't have been more than maybe 22 years old,
mm,
Hispanic looking, nice guy, said, I could really use some money, but truthfully, more than anything, if you've got a job.
mm,
Um, and I said, well, I don't know, let me see what I can do.
mhm,
So the director comes to me and says, "Can you find someone? We've got to have this guy on this big scene coming carrying a cross and he gets crucified."
mhm,
So I went out to the guy and I said, "I got a thing. They'll pay you $100 a day plus overtime. They'll put you
mhm,
up in a hotel. We'll get you per diem. And for 3 days, I can get you a job."
mhm.
So it was really kind of cool because Dennis had always put out there to put out for other people. So
Yeah.
for 3 days, this guy worked on the movie, as it wasn't really a stunt. He was background extra, specialty extra, but I got him like 150 a day, plus a
Mhm,
hotel room, plus
mhm.
food, plus
Which
per
is
diem.
huge.
It was
Yeah.
huge, and he was so
Yeah.
thankful. Um, and he did. He said, "It's like God spoke out." He said, and that he touched. And of all the scenes to do is, I'm doing the one of crucifixion, and
Mhm,
so it made me feel good. And I never really talked about it and so forth, but I thought it was kind of a cool thing that during the filming
mm.
that I could have brought up, because it was kind of a neat thing. So that
Yeah.
was a story that I hadn't touched on, but it made me feel good. I don't know what happened to him, but he was genuinely looking for work. It wasn't like, "I'll
Mhm,
take a handout, but I'd
mhm.
really rather have work." And I go, "Oh, I got a job for you."
Wow.
Yeah,
That's fabulous.
yeah,
That is fabulous.
yeah.
Um, so as you know, I mean, I have a bunch of notes that are just basic notes, and so I'm kind of like skimming through them because I'm like, who doesn't know that? Who doesn't know that? Actually, so this one's a good one. What kind of emotional ride do you can a reader expect if they're
What
not
kind?
familiar
What
with it?
what kind of what?
Emotional ride.
I mean, I get different feedback. I mean, there's times it's kind of funny, and there's times it's kind of sad.
Mhm,
So depending on how it affects you personally, certain stories, I mean, like anything, it's got its ups and downs.
mm,
I mean, as you know, you reread it over and over and over because you're writing and you want to change this, you want to change that.
Mhm.
Um, and there were things that would make me smile. I still laugh over the sequence where I was a kid as a ventriloquist and had the dummy at the window yelling at people outside, and the guy starts threatening me, and my brother walks in. It looks like he's standing up behind the window seal, and the guy's cussing him out. He says, "It's not me," and pointing it down at me, and it looks like he's pointing at the dummy that I've now pushed against the side of the wall. And my brother wouldn't leave for a week because he thought the guy was going to beat the crap out of him. I mean, that makes me laugh. The, the Marines dressing up as the Hulk and Thing at the
Mhm.
White House. I mean,
Mm.
and going out and doing our, and the praises we got from Marvel. Oh my God, you guys went above and beyond. They were out there for over an hour, and you're really not supposed to be in those suits for more than 30 minutes, and they made us
Mhm.
look great.
Mm.
Um, that makes me smile.
Mhm.
Um, Losing my friend Paul always brings back sad memories. Um, that was a turning point in my life that made me redesign something specifically to save lives because there were too many people that were dying from hitting an airbag.
Mhm.
So that one still, I still choke up thinking about the phone call I got and remembering him. He was a really sweet guy.
Mm.
But stories like that, I mean, it's kind of got all sorts of little fun twists and turns and so forth. That's as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I remember when we were working on it together, and one question that kept popping into my head, um, like if you went back and you talked to your 18-year-old self, know, knowing where you are now, would you believe yourself?
I think I'd want to believe myself.
Okay.
Um, somebody I think once asked me if I had to do it over, would I change things?
Mm.
And realistically, I think the smart answer to that would be don't, because wherever I am now led to the decisions I made back then, good or bad.
Mhm.
So I could
Mm.
tell myself, your future has this, this, and that. Um, but um, being an 18-year-old kid with dreams and everything else, I think I would believe it because I want to believe it.
Got it.
That would be like, oh, that's really cool. I did this, I did that. That's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
What part of this book was the absolute hardest to write?
Hmm. I had troubles with the ending that kind of summed up where I am now. Um, there was a lot of difficulty. I left a lot of stuff out. My
Mhm.
mother, where I ended up being her caretaker in the end, was a very difficult time of my life.
Mm.
My relationship with my elder sibling was very difficult, and we're still estranged. We don't talk.
Mm.
I think I once told you that after my mother's partner, Paul, had passed away,
Mhm.
we were selling furniture, and we called this guy that Paul was always selling his furniture to, and he said, "I am so sorry. It took me so long. I was someplace, wherever it was, picking up my brother's ashes." I said,
Mm.
"Oh, I'm so sorry." He says, "We've been estranged so long. It doesn't really affect me. It's just kind of like a job." And I thought, how sad.
Mm.
And I'm in the same boat. I get it. And it's
Mm.
sad. I don't have a relationship with my siblings. It got extremely venomous in the end, and that was a little difficult to try to sum things up.
Mhm.
Um, that When my mother passed away, and there's a whole story behind that.
Mhm.
Um, I I don't miss her, and I didn't feel as sad as when my dog passed away because I was more connected to my dog in the end. And my
Mhm.
mother became I stopped being her son and I became a caregiver and a nurse and a cleaner and a maid. And
Mhm.
I stopped being her son. And it just so the ending, I think, trying to wrap up things and without getting into details, I got into more detail here than I did into the book. Um, and that a lot of should I say this or should I say that? And I kind of
Mhm.
just summed it up. about this is where I am and looking forward to the future.
Got it.
Yeah.
Um, where were you in your life when, well, no, I think we already talked about that. Um, do you feel like writing this actually changed you?
um, to an extent, one thing that I thought about when writing, and a lot of people brought up,
Mhm.
was when you tell stories, your story, any story, tell it from the heart and be truthful. The one
Mm,
thing, the feedback I've gotten from anyone that's read the book that's mentioned it is that it's honest.
mhm.
Another stunt guy who hasn't read the book, when I told him about it, said, "Okay, I got to ask you something. Are you going to be truthful? Are you going to tell everything?" I said, "Yeah." Is I mean, you had mentioned too certain things. You said, "Are you sure you really want to do this?"
Mm.
And you might piss off a couple of people. And I said, "Well, there's nothing in the book that I'm saying that people don't really know."
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
yeah, but I kind of and basically sometimes names were changed or deleted to basically not get somebody into an uproar. If I say, "Well, this guy and that guy," mention names. If certain people read the book, yeah, they'll know who they are.
Well, and admittedly, I thought you were very even in your representation because, as I inferred previously, there were there were moments that if someone reads it, they'll recognize it because it was a very public event. Um, they may not know what occurred behind the scenes, but again, it was something that would be considered a much more a
Hmm.
publicly known moment.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought you really went out of the way to do was to make it more of a an even representation. Because you could have held on to more venomous feelings and clung to that within the memoir itself.
Hmm.
But I really do think you went out of your way to try and represent what the potential motives of different individuals were for whatever activity that wasn't necessarily the most positive.
Yeah, and some of that credit goes to you. You would bring up certain things, like I would make a statement in the book that you know my girlfriend didn't like my comics.
Mm,
And you go, "Why do you think that is?" And I would
mhm,
say, I'm not, maybe she was jealous, maybe it's because I spent more attention to the comic or that. And then I would answer the question to saying, "Okay, let's elaborate on that without getting into um, certain aspects behind um, that might be belittling to her or belittling in general." That they
mm,
just but there were certain questions you would ask that kind of made me elaborate more on certain things. The whole thing with the kid that collected Spider-Man, the
mhm.
kid in the hospital, which always makes me cry. It was so
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I
yeah.
mean, anyone watching this, you've got to, even if it's just for that moment. And I admit, since when I was a kid, I spent a summer in the ICU. A lot of what you had talked about in that, I mean, it was like sucking me back into when I was a kid and I was in the
Mhm.
ICU. And I also went around and like visited with when they finally said, okay, you don't actually have to be in the ICU anymore. You're allowed to go to other rooms, and I was allowed to visit with other kids who were in critical care. Um,
Mhm.
I knew exactly what you were talking about when you relayed that story. But I mean, honestly, Scott, a lot of the work that you did, and for anyone who's watching, what he's describing, it may sound like, so what? So she said, well, why do you think she hated your guts because of X, Y, and Z, right? Or why do you think this happened? you actually did the homework to really kind of to assess your relationships in those stories
Mm.
and to provide that more of a to broaden that, right? To provide that emotional depth.
Hmm.
Because honestly, there are tons of people I'll ask very similar questions and they don't realize this actually really is a craft and narrative question, right? This isn't just me being nosy. I mean, you could put it there, but I'm asking it because there are there are emotional layers to the stories that you're telling that could really, really be de- del really dove into.
Hmm.
I'm like, did I just make up a word? I feel like
That's
I did.
okay. It works. It works. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying, and I agree. When you would ask questions, the same thing. Do you ever know what happened to? We called him Timmy. I don't remember the kid's
Mm,
name. And then I elaborated on that. I don't really know what happened to him, but he was pretty bad off.
mm.
But I'm glad to have made that one day very special. I mean, to see this kid just, oh, I don't want to, who is this? And then it's Spider-Man. I mean, and just to see him light up and for me to
Mm,
be able to kind of go toe to toe with this kid that knew so much, his
mm.
whole life was Spider-Man,
Wow.
that there wasn't a question I couldn't answer. But the unmasking, I mean, that was like, yeah, run up a wall and twist off and land in a patented Spidey pose. That was cool. That was like the clincher, but then to pull off the mask, and I'm, yeah, I was Peter Parker, and that kid just was like, and the mom's tearing up, and you're like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, moments like that, I don't know how you don't feel like, okay, this is why I'm alive, right? Like it's moments like those that you're able to make such a huge difference in someone else's life by doing something that is relatively simple for you,
Hmm.
right? That it's like, oh my God, like, okay, this is why I'm here, right? I'm
Hmm.
here to make these kinds of differences in people's lives. At least that's what I took from it. So,
Yeah, there is a certain point that you're hoping what you do will make a difference.
mhm,
That old terminology from way back, that the initial statement when Spider-Man was first introduced, with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, it is something that you have to take a look at, that when you're in a position of authority or in a position as somebody looks up to you,
mhm,
how you handle it and how you are. The last thing you ever want to have somebody say is, never meet your heroes, because they're
mhm,
not what you think they are.
mhm,
You want them to not only see their hero for what you think they are, but be impressed that maybe they're more than what you thought they were,
mhm.
because you are leaving a lasting effect on people. And if you turn around and you're a bit of a jerk, that's a lasting effect too.
Yeah.
Is you definitely? I mean, when I worked for Marvel, yes, I was representing something. It's
Mhm,
interesting because Marvel wasn't big on TV or movies. They had some animated series, but the comic book was the thing. And that's when we went out as superheroes to department stores and toy stores and so forth.
mhm,
You're representing the character.
mhm,
I think I took it more serious than a lot of my cohorts that were also dressed as Spider-Man, and we were all shapes and sizes and so forth.
mhm,
Um, but without a doubt, I took it very seriously that when I went out as Spider-Man, I was Spider-Man, and
mhm,
that was the big thing. And I answered questions accordingly, and the way I talked to people, I talked as Spider-Man, and I was Spider-Man.
mhm. No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, what almost didn't actually make it into the book? And why did you decide to keep it in? And I know there are a couple of things that we talked about that we either took out or we elaborated on. So,
Um, thought couple of times when I had a manager that kind of set up my whole stunt career and put a composite together that was a bunch of pictures of other people doing stunts,
Mm,
I kind of was wondering, do I really want to put that out there? And that was kind of back and forth. And as I said, I wish I still had that before I realized, and I was lucky it didn't do severe damage. That was something I was like, probably not everybody in the business knows that when I started out,
mhm,
I was putting out a headshot with something my manager put together because he said, "Well, you want to present what you can do."
mm,
And I hadn't done any of these stunts at the time, and I was like,
mm,
"Okay." And that was something I was weighing and said, "You know what? Let's just be truthful. This is out there. It's what I did. Some stunt guys out here probably got my original composite, so there's no secret about it. Let's just put it
mhm,
out there. This is what happened. This is what I did."
mhm,
Um, Certain stunt tales, you want to tread lightly on because stunt guys can have a little bit of an ego and take it wrong. So some of the stories I told without mentioning names.
ah, yeah. Mhm,
But in most cases, anyone that knows me not only knows the story but knows the people.
mhm,
But you don't have to know them to get the story. That's what I'm saying. So those were things I kind of weighed on. I
mm,
initially, um, for Spidey One, who I bring up in the story,
mhm,
which was the um, promotions department favorite guy. Originally, I used his name, and I said, you know what? I don't need to do that.
mm.
If he reads the book,
He'll know it's him.
yeah, he'll know it's him. And there's nothing really negative about him. I mean, I don't dislike the guy. These are just stories that happened. The one story in general, yeah, it cost me to where I almost stopped working for Marvel because of
Mm,
an incident. So, and I thought about that and I said, you know what happened? And that was actually a big turning point to where I literally got fired from working for Marvel
mm.
because of an incident that I had no control over that had nothing to do with me.
Wow. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I said, yeah, let's tell it. Let's just tell it and
Mm.
we'll see what happened to it accordingly because it was part of the timeline. So,
Yeah. No, fair.
yeah.
Um, who do you feel will fall hardest for this book, and who might be surprised at how much they're engaged?
Um, I think definitely people that have a kinship with Marvel and Spider-Man would definitely get into it because there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff
Mhm,
that people that like the character will get into because of my association with the character.
mhm,
Movie and TV people,
mm,
um, absolutely. I mean, it's entertaining aspect. If you like movies and TV, I mean, stories about Clint Eastwood alone are very humorous and very engaging. Um, I work with some of the biggest directors in the industry. My favorite still deals with, Steven Spielberg. That was the coolest thing. One of the, so I had a 3 hour private class with Steven Spielberg.
mm,
Um, so stories like that are behind the scenes from a different point of view. It's not Spielberg talking about it. It's not Eastwood talking about it. People hear
mhm,
stories about Eastwood, how he shoots a film, and I experience it and I share it with. So
mm,
my relationship with Stanley, I get a little defensive um, when people knock Stan with the thing, oh, he didn't create Marvel, that was Jack Kirby and that was Steve Ditko.
mhm,
If I come up with a character and a concept and I put it on paper and I hand it to an artist and he sends me some drawings, I go, well, no, not this, not that. Oh, this is it.
mhm.
But I gave you the creative idea to go with. Is that not my creation?
I think it's a collaboration, but
It is
that's
a collaboration, but the concept and the idea initially
mm,
came from me.
that's fair. That's fair.
Okay. So Bob Kane had this weird looking character, Batman, who just looked weird. And he did. And then Bill Finger comes in, reimagines Batman, gives him instead
Mhm,
of this weird, I don't remember what the suit looked like, but
mhm,
comes up with the concept of who Batman looks like. Now, he never got any co creation credit, but he created Robin, he created the Joker. that should have always been created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, which later down the road it came. Stan, except during promotional stuff, it was always, written and created by Stan Lee.
Mhm.
When, as far as back as I knew him, he always gave credit to Jack. He always gave credit
Mhm.
to Steve. That Steve, Jack did the first initial drawing of Spider-Man, but was like, well, no, that's not right. And then he goes, let's give Steve a shot, because
Mhm.
Steve kind of has these quirky, you know, kind of otherworldly type of looks and so forth, and that created the look of Spider-Man. Um, but to say that Stan really wasn't the creative force behind Marvel, he put a presentation together that said, hey, let's put a group of these superheroes together and they get radiated, and maybe one of them's a monster, like all our monster comics, and Jack comes up with visuals. So
Mhm.
he didn't, but Stan, to say he wasn't creative and didn't create it, oh, Steve Ditko created Spider-Man and so forth,
Mhm.
I would say he co-created. But to throw Stan completely under the bus and some of the really disgusting comments people make about Stan. I knew
Mhm.
Stan. I
Yeah.
wasn't the closest person to Stan, but Stan was a very creative individual. He was a good writer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that too, I mean, yes, um, I had a good relationship with Stan. I mentioned in the book, I like Stan.
Mhm.
But that's the one thing that when I hear people just trash him, I go, you have no idea what you're talking about,
Mm.
you know? So,
That's fair. I mean, especially if they've never met the man. So
yeah.
I'd never met the man.
Yeah.
So of the readers that you've interacted with, what have they said they absolutely weren't expecting?
I didn't get anyone to say they weren't expecting anything. Um, a lot of people just said that it was. Um, some people said, well, they didn't know that, like they didn't know certain things that I brought up in the book about my past and so forth.
Mhm.
Nobody was overly said, oh my God, that's incredible. I never thought of. The biggest comment I always got just that it was like I was talking to them when they were reading the book, and they
Mm.
felt it was honest. And they
Mhm.
said that was a really neat way to approach it, that they liked when they read it. It was easy to read.
Mhm.
Um, the girlfriend I mentioned in the book, and I mentioned her by name, Karen, got the audiobook,
Mhm.
and she had sent me a message on Facebook that she really liked the book. She liked the fact that I was the one doing the reading, and that she's sorry uh, about the incident in Maryland. And
Oh,
I,
wow.
yeah, so, which wasn't an attack to her. We were kids at the time.
Mhm.
I moved away, and she got another boyfriend, and
Yeah.
things happened. But it was interesting to get kind of that feedback. And then she
Mhm.
said that she let her daughter listen to it because it was a side of her life her daughter didn't really know about.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't get anyone like, wow, that's a big surprise. I got very entertaining, very thought provoking, very. But the biggest word always was it was a very honest book. They
Yeah.
liked how honest it was, and I thought, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Even a stunt guy that read it said it is literally one of the best stunt memoirs he's read, from all
Mhm.
the stunt memoirs he's ever read, which it wasn't a stunt memoir. He
Mhm.
said it's honest, and you guys got to read this. So,
Mhm.
and that was cool.
Yeah, admittedly, that's the number one feedback I get is how I, well, interchanging honest and raw, but raw not in a negative way, raw in a you don't you just you tell it like it happened. And again, as we already talked about, you go out of your way to provide a complete picture in situations where you could have quite easily been incredibly biased towards others within the story. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Now, if someone reads the first 20 pages, what keeps them going?
Um, that's a good question. I think what keeps them going is the way the story grows. I mean, I quickly get into, yes, I grew up in army base and so forth, and moving around a lot and so forth. But I quickly touch on my relationship with Spider-Man and where's that going to go? that, and then when I talk about other things, it's interesting because we've talked about this before. We got a really good review from Kirkus, and the only thing
Mm,
they kind of said, kind of rambled on, was the chapter where I talked about toys, books, toys, movies, and TV shows.
mhm,
And part of me was like weighing that out, and I realized that that was a part of what shaped me.
mhm,
The TV shows made me think, wow, this is what I want to do.
mhm,
The toys brought a creative side out to me.
mhm,
Um, so I think what keeps you going is to kind of, when you get into, first comic book I read, and this is where I moved, and that part of you, I think, wants to say, well, where's this going? I have
mhm.
yet to have anyone say, well, that really dragged and I couldn't get through the book.
Well, and
So,
we had actually had a very elaborate conversation around that section, and I had asked, how much detail do we want to get into, right? Is this
mhm.
something that we want to, whittle down some? And we had this exact conversation, as you know.
Yes, yes.
But no, excellent point.
Yeah, and it did. It's realizing, I mean, books and toys and movies and TV shows, they still have a lasting effect. I mean, it's a lot of guys that do what I do. We still have our toys, and we still have our, you got the whole little bookshelf behind me with
Mm,
Marvel and DC and little metal figures, and I've got a whole showcase of figures on the side there that it definitely has a they definitely influenced me in very positive ways, to be honest.
mm,
I mean, using the action figures to map out an intricate action scene for a movie or TV show. I mean,
mhm.
how cool is that? I'm playing with, these figures, and you're going and showing them the wires here, wires there, and he flips here and flips there, and you're doing it with these articulated little 12-inch action figures. That was cool.
Yeah,
No
that
other,
was
no other, no other stunt guy did that. So,
Um, now, what mood do you think that a reader should be in when they sit down to read this memoir?
relaxed, um, open-minded.
Mm,
Um, I mean, you definitely don't want someone in a pissed off mood picking up a book and reading it.
not really.
No, but no expectations. Just
Mhm.
it does actually, when you get going, it does move pretty quick.
That's true.
Uh, it really does. I mean, there's tons and tons. When we got the first advanced copy and we went through it for mistakes and little things to do. I mean, how many times did you read it and I read it and make little
Mhm,
notes and changes? Um, but the fun thing of that, as much as I had done it, is it's still, and I'm reading, I go, oh, this isn't bad. It actually moves pretty quickly.
mhm. Oh, yeah.
So, but I would say don't go in with any expectations. Just go in with an open mind. If it's a subject matter that is intriguing to you, I think you'll find it entertaining,
Mhm,
and in some cases, thought provoking.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and with that, in one sentence, why should someone pick up this book?
why should someone pick up this book? Truthfully, because it's different. It's not your standard memoir. It's not your
Mhm,
standard. It's a whole different look from a person that you may or may not know.
mm,
That's and about parts of the entertainment industry that you are familiar with, that you might find it kind of interesting that there's parts of it you didn't fully know.
mhm. No, I love it.
Yeah.
And with that, honestly, thank you so, so much, Scott, and thank you for your patience.
Yeah,
I'm glad we worked through the technical issues.
yeah, it
And
was weird. Yeah.
yeah, it was really weird.
Mhm.
And then anyone who's watching, if you do have any questions for Scott, go ahead. You can feel free to pop it into the comments section. I do check comments in on all of the platforms where this is being live streamed, and you will be able to see the recording. It'll be available on Facebook, Twitter, on YouTube, And with that, again, Scott, thank you so much. As always, a distinct pleasure.
Same here. Always. It's always good.
Always.
Good.
And I will be back tomorrow, actually, with another one of our incredible memoir authors, Casey. And I believe it is I'm just double checking so I give you the right time. It is with Casey Charles, who is basically at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll be talking about his memoir, which is based on his experience in basically living with AIDS. So with that, again, thank you so much, and have a great evening, everyone.
Take care. Thanks. Oh.